most Westerners eat way too much sugar and they don't even realize it. The reason is sugar is added to processed foods and restaurant foods because it's a form of an addictive food element. There are three main addictive food elements that when you eat them, they cause your dopamine receptors to fire off and you crave them again. The three elements are sugar, salt, and fat. And food manufacturers add sugar to foods that aren't even sweet. So most of us think of sugar being added to desserts. It's obvious if you buy a cake or a pastry that you're consuming sugar. But actually, if you look at the backs of jarred foods, preserved foods at the grocery store, processed foods, and you look at the ingredients, you will find some kind of sugar. Corn syrup or sucrose or cane sugar, it's going to be there. And restaurants do the same thing. And the reason is they want you to come back for more. And this is a really big problem because everybody knows you're not supposed to overconsume sugar. And so even if you have the best of intentions, but you're still eating processed foods, you're eating too much sugar. And so the only way to be sure that you're not eating too much sugar is to be really vigilant, check the labels, and to make your own food. Now, when I'm talking about sugar, I am not talking about fruit. Fruit is a whole food and it contains fiber and phytonutrients and water, and these elements help the body process the food, and the sugar then becomes converted into energy in your body. So this is actually helpful when it's in the form of fruits. It's the same thing with vegetables. Plant foods all contain some kind of sugar, and we actually need that. The problem is when we strip the fiber and the phytonutrients away from the food, that sugar becomes really like a drug. And so I'm talking about white sugar, high fructose corn syrup. So today I want to share with you some of my favorite whole food sweeteners. That way you can still make your sweet treats and you can feel good about it, because when I say a whole food sweetener, I mean the fiber is still intact and you still have some phytonutrients. So it's not going to hurt you. But again, it is a concentrated form. These elements are still concentrated forms of sweeteners, and so it is a high amount of sugar, and you do want to eat these sparingly. The reason why I'm sharing these today is because occasionally I like to make sweet desserts for special occasions or treats for my partner or my friends, and I try to use the healthy ingredients as possible. And these are the ingredients that I like to use. So the first thing I'm going to share with you is coconut sugar. And it's a powdered sugar, so it's dry, and it has a flavor similar to brown sugar. So if you have a recipe that calls for brown sugar, I recommend you use this instead. And this is a really good substitute for anything that you need a dry sweetener with. Now, unlike refined white sugar, it's not as sweet. And that's the thing. The refined sugars are meant to be incredibly sweet and to fire up your taste buds, because that's what brings you back. You have to remember that the food business is a business, and these companies want repeat customers. And so if they can feed you something that sets off that addiction center in your brain, they're going to get repeat customers. So you might have to work a little bit with these sweeteners, and you might have to use maybe a little bit more, or maybe mix them up a little bit. And I'll tell you what I mean by that in a moment. But coconut sugar is a great dry sweetener. It's one of my favorites. And the second dry sweetener I like is date sugar. Date sugar is made from dates that have been dehydrated and pulverized down into a powder. So it's kind of like a thick, I wish I had brought a spoon, but I didn't, but I'll bring this into the camera. It's a thick powder. And it's very, it's just like coconut sugar where it's sweet, but it's not overly sweet. So what I like to do when I need a dry sweetener is I will do half and half of coconut sugar and date sugar, because the date sugar does taste like dates. So you have to keep in mind, if you're making something that like a chocolate chip cookie and you use date sugar, it might have a little bit of that dried fruit flavor. So if you're not a big fan of that, you might not be happy with this. But I love date sugar. I feel really good using it. I'll show you the coconut sugar real quick. You can see that I've used a lot of it since I bought this bag. But see how it's about the same consistency. It's brown. It smells just like brown sugar. Okay, so those are my two dry sweeteners. The liquid sweeteners, I recently discovered date syrup, which I bought it because I was curious. Now I normally make my own date paste, which can be watered down into a syrup-like consistency. And honestly, I think date paste is the healthiest of all the whole food sweeteners. I don't have any here because I haven't made it in a while. But what you do is you take a cup of whole medjool dates, or any date really. I just like medjool because they're so sweet. You soak them overnight and then take the pits out and put them in your high-speed blender and add a little bit of water and blend it. And you're gonna keep adding a little bit of water at a time, like a couple tablespoons at a time, until you get the consistency of a thick paste. If you want it to be thinner, you just add more water. That's it. And this is, to me, this is the healthiest sweetener that there is. The next one being overripe bananas, which I also don't have in front of me. But if you wanted to make something like cookie bars or some kind of a cake, mashed up ripe bananas are perfect sweetener. And you can't get any more whole food than that. So you can feel really good about it. Now this is a little bit more processed. I just recently discovered this stuff and I bought it out of curiosity. And this is kind of like molasses. It's thinner than molasses, as you can see, but it has a similar flavor. So again, it's not overly sweet, so you might want to mix it up. I recently made a cookie recipe where I used a 1/4 cup of this stuff and a 1/4 cup of coconut sugar, and it was the perfect consistency. I think adding a mashed up ripe banana would have helped a lot, but I didn't have one. So date syrup is made by using a little bit of heat to, I looked it up a moment ago, so I might botch this, but it is made by heating up the dates, blending them, and then straining them. So you still get some fiber and nutrients, but you will also lose a little bit. So it's not 100% whole food, but it's still a lot healthier than most liquid sweeteners out there. And the other one, I don't really like to use this too much, but maple syrup. It's a whole food. It's made from the sap of trees. To me, I don't like using it because it's so high in sugar, but it is the sweetest of all these options. So if you need something with a little bit more sweetening power for your recipe, use maple syrup. And if you want to cut back on the amount of sugar, mix it with one of these powdered sweeteners, the coconut or the date sugar. And that should help you balance things out. Or of course, the overripe bananas or the DIY date paste. So maple syrup. And then finally, the last one, it's not even a sugar. It's stevia leaf, which these are the leaves. I grew some stevia in my garden last year and I dried them. So here's what they look like in their dried state. And what you can do with these is you can use them fresh. They're good fresh. You can blend them into drinks. You can blend this into a powder and use it in a powdered form. You can add these to your hot tea, just the dried leaves, and then pull them out when you're ready. I'm trying to remember what else you can use it for. Stevia is a funny ingredient. Some people hate the taste. I don't mind it. I've gotten used to it, but some people really don't like it. It's very, very sweet, so you only want to use a little bit at a time, and you have to play around with the amounts before you figure out what the right amount is for you. I tend to buy the extract. So this is stevia extract, and it comes with a little dropper. And that whole dropper full right here, that's what I would use for a big mug of tea. And this is made by taking stevia leaves and covering them in alcohol or sometimes vegetable glycerin. Let me see what this one has. Yeah, this one is actually made with vegetable glycerin, so there's no alcohol in this one. And so you cover it in the vegetable glycerin and you let it sit on the shelf covered for several weeks. That's how you make an infusion. And then you strain the leaves and you end up with the stevia extract. So is it a whole food? I mean, not really. It's more like a tea, I guess. It's an infusion. And I really like this for liquid stuff like teas and I haven't had much luck using this in baked goods. So you're gonna have to play around with that. I think for baked goods, the date syrup, the maple syrup, and the date sugar and the coconut sugar is gonna be better for that. But this is great for drinks. Oh, lemonade. I'll squeeze in the juice of 1 lemon with some water and a few drops of stevia and make a natural lemonade. Again, I use it in my tea, so it's good for that kind of thing. So I hope that this video helped you. If it did, please share it with somebody who might need some help finding some whole food sweetening sources. And if you liked it, please also like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate the support. And if you'd like to learn more about general nutrition for health and beauty and wellness, more energy, and you would like to have some recipes that are based on whole food ingredients, mostly raw, plant-based, please check out my book, Straight from the Soil. I will put the links in the caption below. And thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.